This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country and join their calls for justice. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
Today I rise to address an oft-forgotten segment of our society. I speak of Generation Z, who will be playing a substantial role in the next election, and Generation Alpha, who will start to come of age the election after. It is for this reason that I shall now render the remainder of my statement using language they're familiar with.
Why?
To the signal
Please don't.
I say that this goofy-air government have been capping, not just now, but for a long time.
Good
A
Lord.
few of you may remember when they said there'll be no phantom tax under the government I lead. They're capaholics.
She delivers it
They're
pretty
also
well, though.
yapaholics. They yap non-stop about how their cost of living measures are changing lives for all Australians. Just put the fries in the bag, little bro. They tell us that they're locked in on improving the housing situation in this country. They must have brain rot from watching too much Kai Cenat and forgot about their plans to ban social media for kids under 14. If that
My mum
becomes
is
law,
listening.
you can forgo skull emoji all about watching Duke Dennis
Forgo
or catching a dub with the bros on Fort.
Okay, I don't know. What's your hit rate of these? How many of these do you know? I feel like
maybe more than half, but like I could be misinterpreting some. I have friends who are teachers, so sometimes I get the insight on the kids' lingo via them because they're like, the kids are all yelling womp womp at me.
I just she's about my age. She's about like 36, and she said she's a teacher. She said one day the kids just all started calling her a boomer. Just kept saying "okay, boomer" at her.
Oh, that's really demoralizing. Yeah, but also I feel like that's isn't that kind of old? Like I feel like that's them trying to use her language. Surely,
right. They're trying to connect with the millennial teacher. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Chat, is this Prime Minister serious? He's the Prime
That's
Minister
a
of
good
Australia.
line.
Sometimes it feels like he's the CEO of Ohio. I would be.
What's that one? What?
I don't know that. It sounds familiar, but I'm going to be honest, I don't know. There's something about Ohio is a meme.
Isn't she like 29 or something? Like, shouldn't she? Isn't she?
I want to know how many people it took to write this speech. Like, do you think it was just the one Gen Z or like Alpha in their office, or is it like a team effort?
I reckon it was a geriatric millennial using ChatGPT.
Yeah, I guess it's probably ChatGPT.
Be taking an L if I did not mention the ops who want to cut WA's GATS and services tax.
What does that mean?
The
decision voters will be making in a few months' time will be between a mid-government, a dog-water opposition, or a crossbench that will mog both of them. Though some of you cannot yet vote, I hope when you do, it will be in a more goated Australia for a government with more aura. Skibidi.
No.
Well, the worst thing ever said in Australian Parliament, I would say.
Pretty bad. But look, I think I wanted to hate it, and I don't hate it as much as I want to. Right. That's my problem. I want I think this is better than what I have seen before, which is so many politicians will try to just drop one or two of the cool hip memes into their speech, and they'll be like they were in Queensland Parliament when they were being like, and we are protecting women's right to choose. That's very demure, very mindful. And I was like, not with the like abortion rights speech now being this really like old weird meme. The fact that she's just gone all out and that's the speech. I like that more.
What is Skibidi?
Skibidi is an insult, I thought. So Skibidi is like bad, but I don't quite understand Skibidi, I'm going to be honest. I thought Skibidi was not good though.
See, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old, but that collection of language makes me think that
I'm out, like get rid of something.
Like peace. Skibidi.
Yeah, no, it just Skibidi, pronounced like skippity, has no inherent meaning. It can be that's so fucking Gen Z. It can be used as a wacky adjective to mean cool, bad, or dumb, depending on the context. Really a high context society.
Hey, all you Zoomers, you're all idiots and your culture is stupid and I don't respect you and I don't think we should save the planet.
I think it's Skibidi. And I don't think you should be allowed to use social media. Well, no, I don't necessarily agree with that.
Unless you're sharing serious danger content.
That's right. We don't agree with the government's social media ban for whatever it is under 14s. Is that what's the age? 16, 14?
Well, the age is still TBC, but it's between 13
age
and
TBC.
16, I think, yeah.
Okay. We don't agree with that because we would like you to share our content because we know that you're sure as hell not listening to podcasts. I don't think they don't like the podcasts. The podcast is Skibidi, some might say.
Skibidi.
Skibidi bum bum bum, yes yes. Skibidi bum bum nim nim. Skibidi bum bum bum, yes yes. Skibidi bum bum nim nim.
The Greens, let's face it, have no idea how they buy their sushi. We are in a bad way if we allow the Greens to manage policy. It's honestly a disaster.
We're stuck with the hosts of Chapo Shithouse podcast.
Serious danger to Australia.
Oh, hey Sam, what's up? We ain't Catherine.
Welcome to this
We're
Goofy
Serious
A
Danger.
podcast. When
Podcast, mate. Greens politics in Australia. God, we're getting old. It's not an official Greens Party podcast. It is produced by Michael, the Griffin, our producer, who would like to apologise for last week's technical concerns in which some dodgy, corrupted audio was released. It was all corrected very quickly, but sorry if you got a version in which Emerald sounded like a robot,
like I was
maybe?
on the radio in the 1940s. Who knows?
Sorry about that.
Hopefully we are now sounding lovely and clear and good to you. My name is Emerald Moon. That is Tom Ballard. Hi, Tom.
Hi.
I am on Yugger and Turrbal country as usual. Tom is still not in this country. Where are you now again?
I'm in Prague in the Czech Republic.
Prague. Yes, performing to your millions of fans over there, I hear. Tom said there were like 11 people at his show.
Hey, it's not about, quantity. It's about the quality.
If you were near Prague, if you are listening right now and you are near Prague and you didn't go to Tom's show, shame. Look, this week we are taking a look at what happened at the protests against the Land Forces Defence Expo in Naarm, Melbourne, and the clashes between police and protesters. And then we're talking to not Vanessa Amorossi, Rebecca Vassarotti, the ACT Greens deputy leader and a member for Kurrajong, about the upcoming ACT election on the 19th of October.
Thanks very much to our new patrons too. Here's a list: Suze, Veronica, Talisha, Ellie and Kamitri, Amelia, Eliza Kate, Rob, Sam, Cassandra, Rachel, Al, Mark, Simon. We love you so much. Thanks for going to patreon.com/seriousdangerau. Chip in just $3 a month and you get the bonus content. Our latest Patreon episode was our look at Advance Australia's anti-Greens campaign, whether we should take it seriously, how dumb these people are, where they get their money, and their dedicated campaign to exposing the truth about extreme Greens and what we think about it. Thanks to patron Michael, who sent us a message. Regarding Advance, I think the Greens are well within their rights to campaign against them, even perhaps to the extent of lodging legal proceedings against them. There is certainly something fishy about their structure and their sources of funding. Why should they get away with trying to influence the political landscape without full disclosure? Same goes for the IPA, for that matter, a similarly opaque lobby group. I guess if any of that electoral reform stuff that we've talked about on the show goes through, then maybe that'll affect these kind of lobby groups. But I guess we'll see.
It does seem like, yes, they are very well versed in using whatever loopholes are available to them to get around, donations, disclosures, whatever, like to operate in a very opaque manner. So, Hey, before we do the show, quick reminder about some much more exciting shows coming up because they're going to be live in New South Wales. If you missed it last week or you haven't yet got your tickets, we are coming to Newcastle and Sydney in November. We are going to be in Newcastle at the Comedy Club on Saturday, the 23rd of November from 2 p.m, coinciding with the Rising Tide blockade of Australia's largest coal port. We'll be there as part of the protestival, giving you laughs to relieve some of the weight of the burden of, crushing existential threat of climate change. And then we'll be heading on down to Sydney for our show at the Vanguard in Newtown from 1:30 p.m. on Sunday, the 24th of November. And we would really love to see you there. Our live shows are always a lot of fun. It's always just a really sweet, it's just a really nice vibe. Just have a bunch of fantastic people in one room and we laugh a lot and we tell little jokes and we make fun of Tom and people yell at him. this time you could bring things to throw, as long as they're soft, be nice. But you could, throw things at Tom. All of that included in your tickets, which are on sale. The links are in the show notes or at seriousdangerpod.com.
Are you worried about those noisy protesters? Are you facing difficulties with First Nations people defending their land and property? Do you laugh in the face of international law? Well, come on down to Land Forces 2024, your one-stop genocide shop. From the 11th to 13th of September, the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre will be showcasing the best and brightest in murder tech.
Breaking news. People who attend Expo showcasing death machines for genocide suddenly worried about violence and peace and stuff.
Strong commitment.
They want the people who are against that, all the killing machines. They say, hey, you guys should be more peaceful as we sell these guns.
Yes. You're only allowed to be angry and resist against something if you've got one of our nice big shiny guns in your hand.
Yeah, that's why they hate the protesters, because they don't buy any of their stuff.
They're armed. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
they fashion. They just pick up horse manure and throw it at the cops.
Yeah, it's quite anti-competitive.
Of course, it's been all over the news. We're recording this episode on Friday morning. There's still another day of the expo in question. There's probably more protests going on. Some more stuff is developing. But yes, a lot of stuff was going on. Thousands of anti-war protesters were outside the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre to protest the biennial Land Forces International Land Defence Expo. We applied to be there and they rejected our media accreditation, which is very annoying. The protesters were met with the biggest deployment of Victorian police forces in over 2 decades. This is the biggest operation since the World Economic Forum in 2000.
Right. Wow.
Which people keep mentioning, the police keep mentioning that. I'm like, I think that was really bad for you guys as well. I wouldn't keep reminding people that was again, another brutal repression of people protesting against.
I don't think they remember it like that. I often hear about, they'd like to celebrate how successful they were in, preventing unnamed terror event from happening or whatever they think was going to happen if they weren't there beating everyone up.
I think it was quite a radicalizing event, and many of your favorite Australian leftists were often further radicalized or had their political views formed by those particular protests. But there you go. For these protests, there were riot police. Regional police came to Melbourne from all over the state. They had a little trip.
Convention. We'll get together.
Yeah, make it a fun time. And there was the temporary enforcement of anti-terrorist legislation. Things got quite ugly and intense. There was the use of stun grenades, rubber bullets, pepper spray, police horses getting injured, getting involved in the violence, whips, bins being set on fire, and reportedly some acid being thrown around.
Yeah, okay.
Spicy. Dozens of people have been injured. There's been over 40 arrests, and there's been all this outrage and pearl clutching and people saying, peaceful protest and all these hippies and our sweet, sweet cops. Will someone please think about delicious, poor, defenseless cops? What did you think looking at all this footage? Were there particular moments that jumped out at you as particularly shocking or anything that sort of took your eye, Emerald?
Particularly shocking? I think that the sheer number of police, the sheer, and the riot response and the gear that they've got is very confronting. But a lot of the use of I will say the use of pepper spray, that hasn't been that usual in Australia at protests until recently. And I know that happened in Brisbane. I don't know if this is now going to be more and more normalized. I fear that it will. Otherwise, the violent, 10 cops on one protester pushing them to the ground, as fucked up as it is, it always makes my heart beat very hard and I feel a little bit sick, but I have seen it again and again now at protests. Cops just pushing someone, violently going out of their way to push a protester when they're not involved with them at all, and it's clearly just them doing that off their own bat. It's, again, pretty fucked up to see, but it's not that uncommon. So yeah, it always makes me feel sick, but it's what you expect now.
It's just how it goes. Well, for a brief overview of what went down, Greens MP for Richmond, Gabriella De Vietri, went along to the protests. She then came back to Parliament and reported about what she saw, and she called on Labor Premier Jacinta Allen to cancel the remaining days of the conference and the expo. Let's have a look at this.
Adjournment is for the Premier, and the action that I seek is to withdraw and call off the excessive police presence and cancel the remaining days at the Land Forces Weapons Expo. This morning, I attended the community protest against the Land Forces Weapons Expo.
Order.
I saw the most horrific police violence, including police on horseback whipping protesters. I saw protesters with their hands up being fired rubber bullets by riot police. I saw people who had huge welts on their bodies and blood running down their faces from being fired at by police with rubber bullets. I heard and saw terrifying stun grenades thrown into crowds of protesters, causing huge explosions. I saw clouds of tear gas billowing out across protesters, peaceful protesters standing there, sprayed at close range. Was anyone else in the chamber here to support their community? No. I was there and I witnessed this. I was doing my job supporting the community, whereas the Minister for Police deployed this excessive force and then sat up in his ivory tower, not accountable, unaware of what was going on. By bringing thousands of police and giving them expanded powers, the Premier gave them a licence to use and abuse that power. Excessive force used to intimidate and hurt protesters is exactly what I saw today.
Oof. That was pretty, there were some clips in there that I hadn't seen as well. How does it make you feel? Like, does it make you feel scared and fight or flight responsey? Because it always really does for me, these videos.
Yeah, it never makes me feel particularly great, I suppose. I have a huge amount of respect for the people who go down there and make this protest, as we'll get to. I think they're a pretty goddamn just cause here. It's always hard to fully assess what's going on, not without being there, but it does seem like the presence, the sheer size of the police presence, and yes, the clear excessive force that they're showing, surprise, surprise, just leads to making everything worse. Now, there are clear footage of people who went down the protest doing some stuff that I'm not stoked about, maybe we could talk about that in a moment too, but it just pales in comparison to the fact of the sheer force of the state coming down there and, yes, dragging people around, bashing them, 6 cops on one person, spraying medics that were treating people who'd been sprayed by pepper spray. Yeah, it's fucking gross.
Well, and the cops always escalate and almost always are the first ones to escalate and to begin the violence. That's the thing. Even if protesters then do shit that you don't agree with, a lot of it, if you have been to protests like this, and I've done a bit of legal observing, and funnily enough, probably the worst that I've ever seen was at a Land Forces Expo protest in Brisbane, in South Brisbane, maybe a couple of years ago. And the way that they arrested this guy, I think he actually passed out and they had their hands on his throat, and it was people were just it makes me feel scared thinking about it, because people were just screaming and it was just horrific. And they always, when you're in that moment, if you are being charged at by 10, 20 people who are armed with guns, I can imagine my responses would be that logical either,
No. And particularly when we know some of the people that are in the fucking police force live for this shit and are clearly, champing at the bit to get into a situation like this in which they can use their condoned violence as approved by the state to unleash it on the dirty fucking anarchist hippies that they despise and will happily display that behaviour. We should clarify, what is the Land Forces Expo? What are we protesting here? It's Australia's largest defence expo. There were 10,000 attendees at this one in Melbourne, representing 45 countries. More than 800 companies are there, including all our favourites: Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Elbit Systems, BAE Systems, Israel Aerospace Industries, and many, many more. And it's just about defense. It's just about defending us from bad things. So I don't know why everyone's so upset. Guns, armour, drones, trucks, and even missiles have been displayed at the event. On Wednesday, British defence company BAE unveiled a military tank to cheers and pounding music, one of many large armoured vehicles quietly brought into the centre under cover of darkness in the past few days. I saw like footage of the displays and the little stalls they've got set up, and I think it was the Israeli one. There was just a graphic of like different maybe jets, I think. Anyway, there's just this tagline saying, "Take your lethality to the next level."
No.
That's what it said.
Really?
That's genuinely what it said. That was like the hot tagline.
Take your killing to the next level. Like,
yeah, you know.
But it's
are you unsatisfied with your level of lethality? Lethality?
Yeah.
There's apparently also a popcorn stand in there, and you could buy some coffee and you'd go into a raffle to win stuff as well. So it sounds really fun.
How lovely.
But like, how do you think these things work? Are people seriously walking around and looking at a model of a gun going, oh, yeah, that actually looks pretty good. Oh, yeah, we need some missiles. We should actually...
Yeah.
Tell me about this one. Like they're at
like,
a fucking car show.
They always put the best ones at the exit, don't they? I almost got out of here, but I'm going to be naughty. I am going to order another tank. You know I don't need it. But it's just,
it's there. It's good to have,
Yeah.
Do they have show bags and stuff as well? I don't know. It just seems like a fucking insane world. And yes, these people all have blood on their hands, in my view.
Masters of War, Bob Dylan. Good song.
Indeed. On the other hand, the expo does apparently bring $70 million into the Victorian economy, so it's good that we have it. And
Good.
The protesters were called Disrupt Land Forces. It's a coalition of more than 50 anti-war and climate groups. You've got Students for Palestine, Extinction Rebellion, Socialist Alternatives, Socialist Alliance, Wage Peace, the Victorian Greens, Victorian Socialists were there as well, and a bunch of others. One organiser from the group said, "We're protesting to stand up for all those who have been killed by the type of weapons on display at the convention. Many of the weapons inside the convention centre are advertised as battle-tested. In the context of Israeli weapons firms which are present, this means tested through killing civilians in Gaza." So it's obviously a very important context. I mean, I guess this is the first Land Forces Expo since October the 7th and the war or the conflict that we're seeing with Israel's brutal assaults on Gaza. So that was certainly in front of mind.
Is it also funded with taxpayer dollars? Because that was a thing in Brisbane, is that the state government literally, subsidises this arms expo with public money.
I don't have information. I mean, surely you would think, but certainly the police force presence was like $10 to $15 million. The police requested that amount of public money to fund the police response. So yes, there's certainly shitloads of money to go into that.
I think
almost certainly there's probably some subsidization.
Yeah, I think that they did fund it, but yeah.
Good stuff. There were talks of expectations of about 25,000 people protesting over the 3 days. That was probably a bit ambitious on Wednesday, and when things were particularly kicking off, it was closer to 2,000 to 3,000. But again, still overwhelmingly, in my view, heroes and vastly ordinary people who think genocide is bad and think that a trade fair where people get to walk around and spend billions of dollars selling the things that are going to kill innocent civilians, including women and children, is a disgrace.
Yeah, I wonder if the publicising that you're expecting 25,000 people at the protests might, I would guess that's how they would justify such a massive police response, right?
Yes, there was some intelligence. The police were saying we had intelligence that they were going there to confront it, and presumably at some point, yes, the police picked up those kind of numbers, which yes, they probably used to say, yeah, we need tanks and stuff. We need 60 horses, please. Police allegedly used pepper spray and rubber bullets on activists, while officers reported being pelted with missiles, including bottles filled with liquid, rocks, and horse manure. Victoria Police said they were appalled at the behaviour of some of the protesters, saying some officers have been sprayed with a liquid irritant, some of which has been identified as acid. Now, we'll get to some of the stories on the other side of things there. Of course, the stories about terrible protest behaviour and police brutality are almost never reported in the same way or given the same emphasis. But I mean, I don't know, is anything you've seen about these protests fall into the category of going too far? Does the use of acid sort of cross a line? I couldn't get too many details about that story, but
I am suspicious.
That does seem to be something of a red flag, yeah.
I'm suspicious about the wording that they've used here, because I think spraying people with acid, that doesn't sound like something that I would have ever seen, heard of, or even heard being discussed by anyone involved in this kind of protest. And so when Victoria Police say officers have been sprayed with a liquid irritant, some of which has been identified as acid, to me, that could mean, for example, we had this, chemically analyzed and determined that there was a component of some sort of acid. Is that, in the same way that Coca-Cola has ingredients that are also used in dishwashing detergent? I wouldn't be surprised. That is how much they will stretch the fucking truth. So I would be very wary of that. If people genuinely brought, I don't know, spray bottles of acid that could corrode skin or damage someone, then no, that's fucking stupid. You shouldn't bring that to a protest. Of course not.
Yeah. I put in this category too. There was, footage of journalists being kind of harassed and protesters coming up to journalists or camera crews and shaking a camera and maybe harassing the journalists there a little bit. Now, I'm not crying any massive tears or playing a little violin for the journalists. Everyone's fine. But I just think in terms of political, using the platform of being on camera or being able to use the advantage of talking to the media, you could capitalize that. You could further the mission. You could make it clear exactly about why you're there and what you're drawing attention to. So that just seems to me more like a wasted opportunity. That
I get the frustration. And I think a lot, then the protest continued on the next day, and I think there was even more sort of response to mainstream media based on the way that they had covered or failed to, appropriately report on what had happened the previous day. And so then the frustration grows, and they see reporters as the enemy and want to be like, well, fuck you. But it's true that I don't think it necessarily helps.
Sure. And look, there are some people, I'm sure, at this protest who would maybe fall more into an anarchist camp or who aren't particularly interested in massive political strategy and who just kind of want to say, fuck all these people, which is understandable, but maybe not exactly in line with the things that I would like a protest like this to achieve. But that's my take. What about the old horses? There was a lot of concern about the horses. Shocking footage showed horse manure being picked up by protesters and flung towards mounted police, with other reports suggesting rocks had also been thrown at officers. One man, this is the Daily Mail, I believe, one man with a long mullet and wearing sunglasses, could be seen repeatedly grabbing at a bridle before he tried to snatch a horsewhip out of a mounted officer's hands. Just why are the horses in the police at all? Why?
I know, this is the most fucking frustrating thing, isn't it? And they do that. They deliberately. This is such propaganda stuff when they rely on their animals, and they're like our sweet little police animals, and they do the little days where they bring their police dogs to Parliament, and they're like, you couldn't hate a dog. Would you hate a dog? A little puppy? A sweet horse? Could you really? And it's like, but I mean, they are being used as a tool of the fucking cops, in that instance.
Yes.
I don't know if this what other jurisdictions have done this, but in Queensland, I know that there have been, additional offences created or aggravating offences for instances where someone's harmed a police dog or horse, a police animal, basically. And it's harming any animal sucks, but I don't think that there should be special offences for doing that when it's a police animal in particular. And I think that it is so used as a also police dogs kill people, they can be fucking dangerous. And when you're sending a bunch of horses into a crowd of people, that's fucking dangerous and horrible for the horses.
Horrible
horses. Yeah.
The manure thing, I'm like, well, you brought the horse.
I don't, picking up, throwing shit at a cop, do not care. That's fine. I'm sorry. Do not care.
Official Greens position.
Greens official party. That's right.
But no, look, there was, serious allegations of and evidence and testimony of police brutality, these things. Hugh is from Wage Peace. He gave a statement detailing his experience of being violently detained. I was holding a placard to protest the weapons trade when police threw me to the ground and kneed me several times in the back, causing large bruises. The degree of police violence we saw today clearly demonstrates how invested our government is in supporting arms dealers at the expense of all life. Also, Melbourne activist legal support, who do fantastic work, they fielded a team of 20 independent legal observers to monitor the police response. They've been doing this kind of thing for a very long time. And they put out a statement saying that their observers witnessed multiple incidents of excessive use of force by police, including rubber bullets deployed at short range, indiscriminate use of OC spray upon large crowds, use of tear gas, rubber bullets, flashbangs against idle persons, and riding of horses into crowds, resulting in injuries. They also, the statement, which is worth a read if people get a chance, they say, yes, we noted chaotic behaviour by the protesters, but in most circumstances, protester behaviour became heightened after and in response to a coercive crowd control maneuver by the police, or the use of police weapons.
Yeah.
They done made it worse. They didn't keep people safe.
Police do not keep us safe. No, they have never, police don't belong at protests. The police shouldn't be. Why are they there? Why are they fucking there? If they weren't there, this would have been far less violent. You can almost be certain of it.
So responses to all the chaos, Premier just said to Alan, I thought this was an amazing quote. Any industry has the right to have these kind of events in a peaceful and respectful way.
Peaceful.
Guys, please have your weapons conference in a peaceful way.
Come on.
If you can. That's their right.
I loved that, didn't she? She gave a speech on this and posted it with the caption, "Hate will never win." So you see the caption and you're like, Slay, this is about I don't know, queers or don't bully. But it's actually about let the arms dealers sell their advanced lethality weapons to kill children in Gaza in peace,
Incredible. It's yes, her argument is that the Greens political party, of course,
GPP,
is using this weapons conference to sow division in society, as if the fact that the weapons conference is trading in death machines is not a divisive thing to do. That's normal. That's just a normal thing.
That's bringing people together. I mean, that's what a conference is, Tom. It's about bringing people together. And the Greens political party just want to tear them apart.
Hate will never win. That's right. Hate will never win.
Anthony Albanese says everyone has the right to protest peacefully.
You don't say you're opposed to defence equipment by throwing things at police.
They've got a job to do, and our police officers should be respected at all times.
All times. Okay. So it doesn't matter what they do. Okay.
No, regardless of what they do, just because they're cops. Susan Lay, the Deputy Liberal leader, said these people need to get a job. I love it. I love it, get a job.
I love that old-fashioned, yeah. It's the 60s, woo!
They need to it's a rent-a crowd every single time we have one of these protests. I back our defence industries every single day of the week. And I know the Australians massively, absolutely do so as well.
That's quite Trumpian, isn't it?
Literally on the same day, we had a story about Australia stripping senior defence commanders of military honours over alleged war crimes committed under their watch in Afghanistan.
Every single day of the week, she backs them.
And there were also horrific allegations that some Australians were involved in burning 5 men to death in the Uruzgan province, during our war crime times. So it's great stuff.
Former Defence Minister Christopher Pyne is now the chairman of a global munitions company.
We protect their right to protest. They wouldn't be able to protest in Beijing or Moscow or Tehran or Caracas, but we protect their right to protest. So, in fact, they remind me why we do what we do in defence and defence industry, which is to protect our values. And our values are freedom of speech and the right of association, freedom of association. And so I welcome the protesters as long as they are peaceful. Now, these protesters have been less than peaceful, and so the police are taking what action they need to protect people's rights.
Look, I just want to say this last bit, which I thought was kind of funny. This is from an ABC article. Some of those some of those inside the conference said the anger expressed at attendees by some protesters was undeserved. Someone filmed me and said, "How does it feel to be making money off dead children?" or something like that, said Andrew Jupp, CEO of mannequin company Mimikin Tech. I think it's pretty unfair because I'm making mannequins for safety and training and things like that. They don't know me. They don't know what I do. They don't know. So it's misplaced hatred.
All I do is make the mannequins to replicate the children that are going to get shot at so that people can learn how accurate the shot is going to be. They don't know me.
No, I don't know. Look, I don't know what this guy's doing mannequins. You can imagine a world in which he's making mannequins to test. No, I guess it's all defense shit, isn't it? It's all bad. It's all terrible.
Yes, he's making the mannequins to test how they react to weapons.
Right. Well, like a crash test dummy in a vehicle, I suppose, something like that, yes.
Well, but I'm sure they're also used for that, but not just that.
Yes, indeed. So
otherwise,
I guess, yes. Do you think this protest was a success? Generally speaking, in terms of just literally raising awareness or literally politicizing this expo and saying that this is a political act and drawing attention to it, I think there's something. Yeah, there's something to that.
Is it worth it? I don't know.
As dodgy as the media can be across the board, we were seeing some. Yes, people were reporting on what the demands were and these kind of profiles of these people are protesting outside. What actually happens inside this expo? And you're getting these kind of horrific stories from any normal person will be like, wow, this just seems like a lot of dudes in suits eating popcorn and discussing how many kill machines they're going to buy. Yeah. But sorry, you're saying you're not sure if it's worth it?
Oh, yeah. No, I really don't know. I never know with this because it's like I do think ordinary people see this and probably think poorly of the protesters because that's the way that they're presented in the mainstream media.
Mm.
But I think you're right that otherwise they might not have known that our government is supporting this weapons expo by arms dealers who are supplying Israel, So, don't know. Also, people got seriously injured. Like, that's not good. That's also bad and probably traumatized and, yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, the Greens are calling for a public inquiry into the police response. I would say that it doesn't seem like the Victorian State Labor government is any interest
Not into
into doing that. But, that based with the Observers as well. The Observers said they're going to pursue things looking into whether this breached sort of Victorian and international human rights laws. I mean, again, I feel like I'm a bit of a coward. I don't go to enough protests. I have nothing but respect for the people who sort of do, who, in this case, literally put their body on the line for what they believe in. I think that's quite cool. And I think, again, just providing some resistance to this just horrific trade that exists and is a modern reality of the military-industrial complex. I think that's kind of good.
Yes. Yeah, with government support. No, much respect to the protesters. Hope everyone is okay. So I guess this week, Rebecca Vassarotti is a Greens member for Kurrajong. She's the deputy leader of the ACT Greens and also the minister for, long list, environment, heritage, housing and homelessness, sustainable building and construction, parks and land management. Welcome, Rebecca.
Good Lord.
Just a few portfolios.
Welcome to a small territory where you get to be the minister of lots of things.
Yeah, very cool. I have to say, actually, I called your office yesterday and when I got the voicemail, it almost feels like a bit of a power move because it says, you've called the office of Rebecca Vassarotti, member for Kurrajong and Minister for the Environment, Minister for Heritage. It lists them all. I'm like, yeah, okay, I get
it. It's such a weird thing, yeah. It's pretty amazing. One of the cool things is I actually really like it though because, you sort of get to be involved in lots of different things, I get to be in environment, built environment and people. So I get to have a say on everything.
Well, and they all link together, I'm sure, as we will discuss. So, obviously, we wanted to have you on the show because the ACT election is coming up. It's on the 19th of October, which is actually 1 week before the Queensland election. So we're both in similar points of the election campaign, I think, but we wanted to get a bit of the goss and maybe some predictions, etc., before it all happens. Also, this is, I wanted to point out, I think this is the first time we've had a government member or a minister on the show, which is quite cool because obviously we've had many Greens candidates and many Greens members, but the ACT Greens are kind of unique in that you guys have been in shared power with Labor since, is it 2008?
Yeah. Well, we've held the balance of power since 2008. Okay. In 2012, we took a ministry when we only had one member, actually. So talk about a power move. And then last election, we were really delighted that we got 6 members. And in that instance, we decided to take on 3 ministries. So, actually really moved into a power sharing arrangement.
Yeah.
Is it kind of annoying that like most people in the rest of the country refuse to acknowledge your existence? We talk about it on the show all the time about, the idea that the Greens would ever be in the ministry is just a ridiculous fantasy.
We're literally
Whereas,
in government.
Yes, a lot of people seem to ignore the fact that you've been there since 2008, for God's sakes.
It's actually pretty interesting. I think, the ACT, we're kind of a bit used to being ignored. It sort of happens in lots of our lives. Kind of feel like we're a little bit of a hidden gem, a hidden utopia where, we can actually show
like the TV show
how it's done. Well, that's true. Some days it is my life, I tell you, Emerald.
It's very sad, isn't it? You entered Parliament, what was it, 2020? When were you elected?
last term. I went,
Yeah, 2020.
I got
okay.
elected and went straight into a ministry. Yeah.
That's wild. That is really unusual. Hey, I mean, what are your favorite things that you've been able to do in shared power, but I guess also as well reflecting on like what the Greens have been able to achieve in that arrangement?
Yeah, look, like, as you said, it was a pretty wild ride. I wasn't even really convinced I was going to get elected. So, not knowing that you'd be elected to going, okay, this is it. This is the moment. It was definitely a thing of, all right, let's just get in. You never get these opportunities, so you've got to throw yourself into it. Look, and it's an amazing experience. I think anyone who gets the privilege of being elected, it's incredible anyway. And to be in this really unique position, whereas particularly as a Green, to actually have the opportunity to be in government and really make decisions that will make a difference in people's lives, it's extraordinary. I'm really lucky. I just think the portfolios I have are extraordinary. Got the environment portfolio. Once you put aside the existential threat of the fact that the world is going to hell and we're sort of losing all of these incredible creatures. It's actually an amazing portfolio. And what I love about local government in particular and the state government is that you actually get to do things that make a real difference in people's lives. I'm the homelessness minister, so we've pumped so much more money into homelessness services and grown how many more services there are, so you can really see the difference of the decisions that you make. And being a Green in government, as Tom said, it seems ludicrous, but you can actually really show how you can do it and how you can do it differently. And that's what I've been really committed to, sort of going, okay, you just don't want to be like everyone else. What does it mean to be a Green in government? How do we do things differently? How do we really try to bring community in to be part of the process? And, we're all sort of, part on the same team rather than this just, top-down thing. This is how things have always been done.
It's a funny test. I mean, obviously, a lot of the time the Greens will get criticised for not having to have the responsibility of government and being able to just, propose policies and big ideas without necessarily, as Labor usually would say, having to follow through and don't know what it's like to actually run government. And I do think I think a lot of the time that critique is not necessarily made in good faith, but I think about the fact that in addition to trying to put forward these ideas about changing the world and ending homelessness and, stopping new coal and gas or whatever it might be, you're also, I look at your media releases page and it's update on second case of bird flu detected in the ACT. So you also actually have to do all those little government things, which must be funny.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. It is that thing of, actually having to, if you make a promise, having to deliver on it. And this is the weird thing that happens in the ACT that basically, I don't know, Labor is pretty complacent. They're pretty tired and they don't bring a whole lot of new ideas to the table. So what tends to happen is that, particularly in election cycles, and last time around it was about banning new gas connections. We put out a policy. Labor says that we're deluded and crazy, makes fun of us, and then 2 years later, it's government policy and we're rolling it out. So it's just really, again. First they laugh at you. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, and then they take your policy and try to claim it. Which is,
as the saying goes. That's exactly right. Yeah.
That's our reality. But but then you get to do some really weird stuff. I didn't even. It was really funny. With my stupid long list of ministerial portfolios, I didn't even know I was the Minister for Agriculture, and now I'm putting out things about bird flu. So you get
to learn new things. That's the benefit of the job, right?
But actually, the other cool things is how do you green up? How do you green up all your ministries? And agriculture is an awesome example of that in terms of. We went, oh, this is interesting. And, I'm really passionate about food and local food systems and stuff like that. So it's fun to be a Green turning up to an agriculture minister's meeting. Certainly David Littleproud really enjoyed that. But also you just get to do things in a way that's really different.
Yeah.
We've all been there. We've all woken up one day. We've forgotten the fact that we are the Greens Minister for Agriculture of the ACT.
At least you hadn't secretly kind of given those ministries to yourself. It's not a Scott Morrison situation.
This is true.
You do have to hold them legitimately. Yeah, exactly. But you then, so you're in government, you get to do things, but you also do have to work with the Labor Party in this this power sharing arrangement, which I imagine can sometimes be frustrating because they are really a centrist party. And what I think is very interesting and exciting is I understand this week, or by the time this episode will have come out, the ACT Greens have launched this new push to be this is the election where actually you could be electing not just a Greens in balance of power or power sharing, but a Greens government, Greens leading the government. How within reach is that actually like? Is that genuinely possible? What kind of swing would we need?
Well, look, we'd certainly need we'd need a swing. But if it's going to happen anywhere in Australia, it's going to happen here. We have proven that we can actually do this. It's really interesting. We're in a situation where we have more experience in government than the opposition. We have been in government
than the Liberals.
We've got more ambition and courage than the Labor Party, and people have seen what it looks like. So if we only got 2 more seats, we would be on a level pegging with Liberal and Labor. So look, it's ambitious, but that's who we are. We are ambitious. We want to put out the big ideas. We only had 2 seats last time, and we sort of pitched to the community. Imagine that if you had 6, everyone thought we were crazy, and we got 6.
And you got 6.
So everything is, everything is possible.
Yeah.
Wow.
So at the moment, right, you've got 6 Greens there. So it's a unicameral parliament in ACT. It is Hare-Clark voting system, but multi-member electorate. So there's 5 electorates, 5 MPs per electorate, and there's 10 Labor, 6 Greens, and then 8 Liberals and 1 Independent. So what you would be looking at is that are you thinking that, basically 2 of Labor's seats turn Green, and that means that you are up to 8, they're down to 8, or is that what it would look like?
Yeah, look, a whole lot of weird things could happen. So there's actually 9 Liberals at the moment, although they've just disendorsed and kicked out someone in their party, so they're kind of down to 8. This is the weird thing about Hare-Clark. Lots of different things could happen. So the seat that I won, I actually won that off a Liberal, that was sort of notionally a Liberal seat. And so, again, particularly with the 5, members, interesting things could happen. So you could you could get it from, there's probably a couple of our areas where it's more likely. But
which areas are those?
Probably mainly in the north, in Ginninderra, Belconnen, and sort of the Gungahlin area. They're probably the 2 areas that it could happen. Look, it's ambitious. It may not happen this time. It might happen the time after. But, what we have really, we've really got a sense from the community that they are sick of the duopoly of, the Coles and Woolies of politics, and they are looking for something different. And we really get it. We live it every single day, the frustration of, a real centrist and, lack of imagination about what is possible. And so, we sort of go, well, look, let's think about things really differently. And I think this is the great thing that we've got an opportunity to do here in the ACT is what does government look like that's really different to, what we've done before, even the, I think sometimes it's actually really hard being in government, but that's actually the point.
Yeah.
There are a few challenges that come up. How do you negotiate that, Rebecca? Because I assume that you have to run on the record that you achieve while being in government, while at the same time still making critiques and pointing out how Labor is falling short and all the bad stuff that is about Labor, but also they're good in the bits where we work together with them as ministers in their government. How do you think about all that?
Yeah. Look, we are really proud of the things that we've achieved. We've actually done amazing things over the time that we've been in Parliament, and certainly the stuff that we've done over the last 4 years, I'm absolutely really, really proud of. And we have pushed Labor really, really hard, and particularly in the areas where we've had, control over, we've done really well. but we have amazing influence, but we don't have complete control. And I think that's what, we're really trying to, talk about with the community. There are areas that we are really disappointed about. And I think it's about being really open and honest. Hey, I've had a lot of learnings. There's stuff that I would do differently if I did it again. So I think being honest about that in terms of where we think we should have pushed harder, where we didn't, where we learnt things in terms of, how things were arranged, and the area of housing and public housing is a really good example of that. Like we all know how cooked the housing market is. We've kind of, accepted for a while that there wasn't that much that we could do at the local level because of all of the stuff happening nationally. But now we've gone, no, that's not right. We've learnt a whole lot of stuff in government. We can see how we can really make a difference here in the ACT. And we've now got the experience and the understanding to develop a plan about how to do it. So, I think it's, being true to your values, being honest, and just having a proper conversation with the community. I think often people don't treat the community with a whole lot of respect. But again, we're pretty lucky here in the ACT that we have a pretty switched on community that is really up for an honest debate about what's going on.
Yeah, and the housing one. I mean, I understand that that's probably top of the list, like if not number one on the list. It's definitely one of the key priorities. Yeah. And your plan, I was having a little bit of a look at this, but keen to talk more about the plan that the ACT Greens are bringing for housing, because it is very much built in together. It's a housing and planning system, and it includes like a publicly owned developer, for example, which obviously we've now proposed at the federal level as well as in Queensland. And that would be something that I would be super excited to see get across the line if, Greens are in government in any form after the election, is, the government actually getting involved in developing, like buying land and building homes for people to live in.
Yeah, look, I am super excited about that policy. That's the one that I sort of worked really hard to develop. And that's sort of, going back to your question before, Tom, I'm the Minister for Homelessness. And so, we've done a whole lot of really great work. We've actually seen homelessness increase over the last 4 years. And I have to say, a couple of years ago, I was in the depths of despair because it became really clear we're not going to solve homelessness in the homelessness sector. We just need more homes, basically. It's not that hard. And so we did a whole lot of work. And so we really, we sort of went, okay, we can, we reckon we can build 10,000 homes over the next 10 years. But you can't do it from through business as usual. And I think this is the whole issue about the fights we have with Labor in terms of it's not just going on and doing what you've always done. That things such as a public builder really, putting big ambition on the table, putting real money, like we've been asking the Public Housing Authority to basically self-fund a lot of their redevelopment and growth in the public housing, in public housing here in the ACT. So we've just got to completely lift our ambition, ensure that it's not business as usual. Don't keep looking at the private sector to solve the problem that they've actually created. The housing sector market is basically a failed market. So why are we looking at the market that's failed to solve it? And so, for us, it's really about where it is the role of government to get involved when things have gone wrong. And so let's just bite the bullet and get in there and do it.
So the public developer, one thing that I wanted to check was, like, I know with the Queensland proposal, for example, the homes that the public developer builds, where they're referred to as public homes, but they're slightly different to public housing as it's figured at the moment, in that they're universally available. So they're not necessarily subject to means testing like public housing is at the moment. Would that be the case? Like, is that the proposal in the ACT as well? Or would these be public homes as they're made available now?
Yeah. So look, what we're really trying to do, we're trying to get back. We were really lucky, in the 80s and 90s, about 10% of homes in the ACT were public housing. We want to get back to that. We've seen it go down and down and down proportionately, as at the same time as seeing the public housing waiting list, get really expand and balloon as well. So in the our view is in the first term we could probably build about 3,500 homes. That would that would actually completely wipe the housing waiting list. So there's still people who with that eligibility, but then we'd really like to be able to expand eligibility, because what we want to do is that, you know, we want public housing and the government housing to actually be a landlord of choice, not a landlord of last and not a landlord of last resort, you know, which is where we've got. And that then it creates all of these issues around stigma, you know, these perceptions around, around people's lives and stuff like that. You know, we've been called communists for suggesting this crazy idea, but it's sort of like, you know, communism in the 90s, or maybe Canberra in the 80s, because that's exactly what we were doing in the 80s.
Yeah. And I do. Yeah, that's good to clarify, because I agree. I think it's like, obviously there's probably an obligation, or there is an obligation to house people with the highest need, but shifting towards a more universal model with public housing for everyone. I really like that idea. The other thing I thought was interesting with your housing policy is, the accusation, again, often leveled at the Greens, is around, well, you are, the housing crisis is your fault because you're NIMBYs and you oppose new developments. And your planning policy is very interesting because you are proposing city limits. So to, place bans or prohibitions on development outside certain limits that's impacting green space and urban forest. But at the same time, you're actually wanting to encourage infill development and change the zoning rules so there's more development close to, community hubs and public transport and community facilities and that sort of thing. So I can imagine that you might have been, when you say, oh, we want to set city limits, the YIMBYs might come out and say, see, there's the Greens being NIMBYs again. But at the same time, you're actually saying, well, we do want to upzone and build in, right?
Yeah. Look, and I think this is a really interesting thing. I think a lot of these debates, it's really set up to be, one thing against the other. And that's certainly where Labor's tried to, frame the debate that, because we care about the environment, we're stopping, housing development and stuff like that. Yet, I've been really clear that we can actually have everything, and things like looking after our environmental infrastructure within our urban footprint becomes more important, not less, when we're doing urban infill. But we really need to do urban infill. We cannot keep sprawling. We have barely any land left here in the ACT, and it is really precious habitat. But it's also not where people want to live. People want to live next to, close to where they work, close to where they play, on transport routes and things like that. And so there's really good opportunities. One of the things I've learned as a building minister is so much of the angst is really around bad design and and bad quality, that if we think this through and we have things that are beautiful and well designed, a lot of the issues around NIMBYs kind of goes away. And when I sort of talk to, the advocacy groups, we've got, some YIMBY advocacy groups, but then I talk to the residential groups. They're all saying a lot of the same things. And I kind of say, you guys, you really need to talk to each other, because you think that you're, completely opposed, but you're actually not. That a lot of this, people actually understand some of the challenges that we have in front of us. They want to do the right thing, but we kind of just get forced into this thing of having fights with each other. And again, I think that's one of the things that we can bring as the Greens to try, and one of the things we've learned, particularly here in the ACT, how you build consensus, how you do collaboration, how you find where the common ground is to get a good outcome for community.
Just be careful, Rebecca. Don't, build too many houses in Canberra. Like the hustle and bustle already in the centre of Canberra is like pretty intense. So I just think you really want to be careful. Not have too many people rushing around there.
That 10 minutes of peak hour is pretty intense. So, I do hear what you're saying.
Thank you very much.
I know you've got a whole other incredible platform. I really like some of, the health policies around GP clinics and walk-in mental health clinics, and also abolishing ambulance fees, because I think it's fucking insane that in any state, anyone has to pay for an ambulance to be called out. Yeah. But since we're obviously short on time, I want to hear a little bit about like the campaign tactics and how you're going to make it happen. Are there big like door-knocking campaigns in Canberra?
Yeah. Look, obviously, we've always, we're a people-powered movement, and so our greatest weapon, or the opposite of weapon.
Peaceful, non-violent, fourth pillar weapon.
Non-violent weapon. I know, I was just going, that's really bad in terms of the pillar head, is our people. Like when we have a conversation with someone, we have great ideas, we have great policies, and we've got a plan to deal with it. So every time we have a conversation, it's it's a really fantastic one. So we've been out door knocking for months and months. We're obviously really inspired by the Queensland Greens and all of the wonderful, they're just power machine in terms of their door knocking. But we've got people out on the doors, all the time now. Now we'll be going out every single day, but we've been going out.
Nice.
We've been going out all year. And it's just fun, like my biggest tactic is like, how can we, bring great people together that enjoy hanging out together with just a bit of campaigning on the side. Door knocking. I'm also, we again, sort of really inspired by some of the work of Queensland Greens. My latest thing is that we're going to change the world one barbecue at a time. So we're having, doing lots of those community barbecues. And again, just about, people are more relaxed about coming and having a chat with us. Obviously, we love being on social media, and I sort of enjoy embarrassing myself on social media. At least a couple of times a week.
I've seen your TikToks.
I know. Yeah. It's kind of fun, and just chatting to people. We're so proud of what we're presenting to the community. I think this is the whole idea. This is a really important election. We have got huge challenges in front of us, in terms of all of the crises it faces, but we can actually do some amazing things here in Canberra, and I think we can be a real model of what is possible. And so, I'm so excited about it, and I'm so excited to talk to people about all of the great initiatives and policies that we have. We think about the cost of living crisis, and it is really hurting people. But the other parties, they're talking about vouchers or business as usual responses, where we're sort of going, let's actually dig into the structural issues around inequality and what is the role of government to intervene and actually look after everybody. So that issue of universality and really, essential services, and making sure that everyone has the ability to live a good life. Because, while people joke about Canberra, it's actually, we don't want too many people to know how awesome it is to live here, because it is the best place in the world.
It's too overcrowded. What is the mood on the ground? Like, I mean, and particularly I'm curious about whether you are feeling or seeing in the polls even the same kind of massive swings away from Labor and even towards the CLP, because that's happening across the country. Is that happening in Canberra too?
Look, we don't do a lot of polling, so it's really hard to know what's going on. It feels pretty good. Look, the Liberal Party is trying desperately to whip up a law and order campaign, because they've seen how successful it is in other places. But this is Canberra's different. Canberra is progressive. We're one of our big wins this term is that we have legislated to raise the age of criminal responsibility to 14. Whereas in the Northern Territory we're seeing the horrific decision to go back to 10. So Canberra wants to be progressive. It feels pretty good. I think there is a frustration in the community, particularly with the Labor Party after 23 years of government. And that's one of the reasons why we're saying, hey, there's actually a different option here with a group that, actually is tested, but does have ideas, have ambition, have courage, and really want to make a difference.
That's the challenge, isn't it? The challenge is saying you're pissed off with Labor. Your alternative is the Greens, not the Liberals.
Yeah.
Is there any threat from Labor trying to win Green seats off us? I mean, I know that you picked up a Liberal seat, but is there any sort of does Labor think that they could claw some back from little Greenies?
There's always a tussle. And again, with Hare Clark, it's weird things can happen. So, I think there's definitely, in each of the seats, there's definitely, lots of keen candidates that are in there sort of trying to get attention. So, we're really hopeful that in terms of the work that we've done over the last 4 years and really proven how, that we really are there for community. But, elections are a contest of, they're supposed to be a contest of ideas. So we're trying to generate that at least. But, politics is a pretty weird business.
It's a strange beast. What can people do to help, I guess, Canberrans who are actually there, but across the country? Anyway, we can help.
Yeah. So look, we'd love people. Government. Yeah. Look, again, we really love people to get involved with volunteering and helping out with the campaign. As I said, we try to make it as fun as possible, and it's just really cool just to hang out with lots of interesting people who care about the same stuff as you. People can do things as small as putting a sign in their yard to say that they support the Greens, to coming out and hanging out with me every weekend, every day on stalls and door knocking and all of that kind of thing. We're doing lots of social media. So, talking, sharing that content and talking to your friends that might live in the ACT, we're really, one of the great things about our party is that we've got lots of young people involved, and there's a real place for everyone. We've got one of our youngest candidate is 19. We have a sitting member, Laura, who's the wonderful Laura from Brenda Bella, who's 24, and so this is really a party for everyone in all life stages. So. I think the key thing is get involved and get excited. This is an exciting opportunity. I think we can get really cynical about politics, and I really understand why people are really cynical about politicians, because a whole lot of them, deserve our cynicism. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be like that. It actually can be really exciting and fun, and and is a great antidote to despair.
Yeah. All right. Well, can't wait to see the first Greens government. We're going to make it happen. It'll be exactly like that tweet that we talk about. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming on the show. And I didn't call you, so I don't know if anyone else does this, but in our office, Vanessa Amorossi.
People, it's so bizarre. People send me emails with my name in the thing saying, "Hi, Vanessa." People call me Vanessa all the time. I basically answer to it. Yeah, some of my staff think I should change my name because they're worried that people will go into the polling booth and go, "Where's Vanessa?
Where's Vanessa Amorossi? I need to vote for her." I don't know what her hits are, but yeah,
Well, I'll tell you should vote for the ACT Greens. Absolutely everybody.
Absolutely. Oh, okay. Yeah, that is a hit.
Nice. Yeah, that she had Shine as well. Shine's great.
Yeah. We might steal that. We might have a bit of fun with that.
There you go. Yeah. All right. That's one for free. Thanks so much, Rebecca.
That is our show. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you to Rebecca. Thank you to Vanessa Amorossi for providing us with wonderful music, and to Rebecca for providing us with great content. Call to action this week, go to disruptlandforces.org. That's the coalition of organisations that were involved in the protests this week. You can find out more about them, and you can donate to them as well to support their efforts and potentially legal funds, I assume. Gabrielle de Vitry has also been telling people if you're at the protests and you want to report any misconduct that you saw, you can do so to IBAC. There's a link in the show notes for that. And there's a cute little Greens document on staying safe at protests and the resources. And if you're planning on doing more protesting, which you should, it's your goddamn democratic right, have a look at that list as to how to stay safe and the best way to go about. And on all your rights and stuff as well, which is important to keep in mind, particularly if you're getting your head knocked in by the fucking pigs.
This is cute. Yes. Please rate and review the show as well on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. And also come to our live shows in New South Wales in November. The tickets are at seriousdangerpod.com. That's where you'll find all our other stuff as well, and links to our Patreon. Please consider becoming a Patreon subscriber if you're not already, because it helps us keep running the show. But also our socials are there. We're at Serious Danger AU on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok and YouTube. And we love you so much forever and ever. Absolutely everybody in the whole wide world.
Serious danger to Australia.